What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another solo leveling Arise video. All right, folks, we are going to talk a little bit about the brand new cores. That's right, there are some brand new cores that came out with the brand new WOBL, which are throwing people for a loop. And I want to discuss where you want to use them, who you want to use them with, and why they are going to make somewhat of a difference in certain modes and almost no difference in other modes. I have had a chance to actually play around with some of these. Luckily, some are actually very useful, while others are kind of downright bad. Again, they're going to cater specifically to units that you probably are using right now, which is why they're built. But I also believe they're going to be catered to units that are coming out in the near future. So that might be one of the reasons why you're looking at these guys and wondering why the hell did Netmarble release these when we already have better ones. Now, we're going to go ahead into the core section here. You guys can see I've got most of them already acquired, right? The only things I'm missing here are the ones that are rare. Again, not a big deal in that regard, but we do have a majority of these guys in the bucket. So we're going to go over these, kind of talk about where you want to use them, where they're going to be useful, and why you might actually consider swapping these over. Now, keep in mind, the new core breaker, right, which lets you get to level 17, will allow you to actually move most of these stats over. Including from the old cores, not just the new cores. So a lot of people are confused thinking that only the new cores are the ones that can level up. That's actually not the case. You can get any cores to 15. It's completely up to you which ones you choose. You just got to make sure they're level 10 first. Okay, so let's go ahead with the actual brand new cores. We're going to look at the two legendaries here, and then lastly 2 legendaries here, and you guys can see the various different types that come out of them. Okay, so first off, Hunger of the Crimson Apex. All right, so you can either get additional attack or attack percentage, and of course a random other stat, whether it's defense pen, crit damage, crit rate, whatever the case may be, MP reduction, right? All that stuff is all there. Nothing's changed there in regards to that, but this one here increases attack by 6% when MP is 50% or below. So this is an interesting one. This is a very interesting one. This one you can probably use very, very well with an upcoming future unit. Now, I have a funny theory about Kanai because she is somewhat linked to Mireille, and if Mireille's attack is higher when her MP is higher, I'm wondering if Kanai is going to have higher attack with lower MP. So that might be a possibility. But on top of that, there is actually a codex here for a specific legendary, or I guess just a blessing stone called Desire right here, right? Which actually increases your attack by 24% if your MP is 60% or below. So you can definitely run this and run that at the same time. If you can keep that MP below 50%, you're running at 30% extra attack for SJW. So that's a pretty big, hefty amount of attack added, but this is a tricky one, so you'll have to be careful in terms of MP management. And also, of course, if you're running Desire, you cannot recover MP as well too in regards to moves. So for example, Magnifying Slashes is out the door, but at this point, most people aren't using it anymore as much unless you're doing Guild Boss, right? So this is, I think, a future one. Right now, I could see it working well with Desire, but again, Desire right now is still a test and progress in regards to figuring out what the best way to optimize it, but this looks like it'll be a good hand-in-hand with that one. Okay, so and I think again future units will most likely use this one. At the moment, not the best blessing stone out of the new ones. And of course, not to mention the fact that it is always competing with this essentially, which is just giving the user the flat 5%, which quite honestly is way better than having to reach the MP. Even though it is a 1% increase in attack, having that 5% always be active is a way bigger deal than having this extra 1% with the MP being 50% or below. But again, more testing with this and to see if that extra 1% will make an impact over the long run, but I don't think it will at the moment, at least. Okay, next one up here we have Eyes of the Watcher. Increases the critical hit damage of core attacks by 20%. Now this one, you can imagine, will have a fairly big impact on a lot of units. So Gunhee comes to mind, right? Obviously Thomas comes to mind, Charlotte comes to mind, Alicia comes to mind, right? If you're looking at anybody who has a core attack as their main source of damage, then this here is a no-brainer, right? This is actually one of the best brand new cores out and heavily plays in favor of those units. So the best way to kind of look at this one is the core attack by the critical damage by core attack by 20% is a much better option for these units, because most of these units are scaling off of defense, or some are off of attack, but they already get so much of a boost from attack anyways from their gear, like let's say from expert and stuff, that having the extra crit damage by 20%, and remember this is a flat 20%, which means it's not being affected by any other stat, whether it's TP, whatever the case may be. You are getting the full 20% here with your core attack. So this is by far one of the best ones, and everybody who is using a core attack user should switch to this Eye of the Watcher as your main source of damage. It will up your damage quite a bit. You'll notice a hefty increase of your DPS, and there's nothing here that actually gives you that outside of this one, right? This one, I mean, increases your damage by 20% for 8 seconds when you do ultimate, but nowhere near as good as the ones you're looking at there. So definitely, guys, Gunhee, Thomas, Alicia, etc., right? Anyone who's a core damage user, Charlotte, these are the ones they want to focus on. All right, so there you guys go. So this one, not as good. This one, really, really good. So between the two of them, you want to aim for Eye of the Watcher for sure. And then, of course, the Ancient Brass Obsession should be your attack one for now, because, again, it's a flat 5% attack with no gimmick tied behind it, realistically, at the end of the day. All right, next one up, guys. We're going to go over to Desires of the Crimson Apex. This one here increases defense by 6% when your MP is 50% or below. And then this one here, of course, increases defense by 6% at 70% or fewer HP. This is a tough one, okay? So at the end of the day, you most likely want to have this on the Desires of the Crimson Apex. I feel like this will be the better of the two. Only because usually most of your defensive units don't really lose that much HP because they're all filled with shields, right? Now, if you are running them on higher end content where they are losing HP, then of course this is a better option, because 70% or fewer HP is easier to achieve sometimes than going through the 50% or below. This here, I can see it being more useful in Guild Boss. Because MP is always a rampant issue for most units, especially when you get into the later rages and they're just constantly spamming their skills. This one, on the other hand, I could see probably being a little bit more useful where you can control it. WOBL for an example, right, would be an easy one there, where you can control how much HP your units have, especially defensive units, to get that extra 6%. Just let them take a few shots and you're below 70%. The rest they can just shield through and be fine, right? So between the two of those, you got those. Obviously, if you compare it with these, this is damage reduction for this one, and then this one, of course, you get a shield, right? So if you're looking at between the three of them, these new ones aren't bad. I would say this is 50. It depends on the content. Again, this is more controllable and I think better for WOBL, but the MP one would probably be better off being worked in GB or even POD, where MP is something that, you know, units use on a constant basis. And if you don't have an MP recover or a lot of MP reduction, this one might be working a little bit better for you. But again, WOBL, because you can control the fight, take a few hits, don't up your shield yet, and then once you get that 70% or below, start using your shield and then get that extra 6% bonus. So why not, right? So not bad options, but not great options either. All right, last but not least, guys, the Punishment of the Crimson Apex and Teeth of the Watcher. So these are the two new ones again. Core passive. When the user's 20% of their MP or less, they recover MP equal to 30% of their maximum MP. This effect occurs during combat. This is actually a fantastic one. Can be used quite a bit for a lot of different units. Almost every unit, as a matter of fact, can use this one, especially in places like Guild Boss, POD, and even WOBL, because there is a chance where if you don't have enough MP reduction or somebody that can heal your MP back, recover MP like Gina or Hansimi, you are going to most likely run out of MP to some extent, and this is a great way to recover 30% of your maximum MP, which is pretty damn bomb, actually, guys. So this one for sure is a no-brainer in my opinion. This is probably the best one, I'd say, next to this over here, right here, which can increase your power gauge. But a lot of units don't even use this, right? So that's not even a really good comparison. And then this one over here also, if you use your ultimate, can recover MP 5% of your max MP. So this is not a bad option. This is every 20 seconds. So both these are really good. I think this is more of a like over time, while this is a bigger, the other one's a bigger chunk, right? The Punishment of Crimson Apex. And then this one here decreases MP recovery rate by 10% and MP consumption of basic skills by 9%. So both are actually pretty damn good, I have to admit. So this is decreasing your MP recovery rate by 10% and MP consumption. So this is going to reduce the amount of MP your basic skills take by 9%, but also takes away your MP recovery rate. This is not that big of a deal, quite honestly, if you have good reduction. So the MP consumption of basic skills being reduced by 9% is a pretty big margin, actually. So if you can, it's somebody that spams their basic skills, you ideally want this one on them. Someone else who spams but also can't keep their MP high enough, then this one. Both of them work really, really well. I think both require a little bit more testing to see which is more favorable, but I'd like to think that this one here, the Crimson Apex one, is probably better for Guild Boss, while this one here is probably better for like something like WOBL or faster fights that don't require the full 5-6 minutes that you're supposed to take. All right, but overall, guys, they're actually not that bad. Originally when I looked at these, I was like, oh, these are pointless. But quite honestly, when you start comparing them to some of the older stuff, these new ones are actually pretty damn good. They do have better damage output for core users, that's for sure. Attack users obviously benefit a little more from Ancient's Wrath Obsessions, but quite honestly, outside of that one, everything else here is pretty comparable to the new stuff, and quite honestly, some of the new stuff is actually better than some of the older stuff. So there you guys go. Those are the reviews. I do think some of these are much better than the others. For example, the Limbs of the Watcher, I think still a little bit more control in WOBL, while this one here would be a little bit more control in, or a little better in GB. This one here, of course, would not be quite as good. We'll still have to test out Desire with it, but this is a no-brainer for all core attack users for every piece of content, so everyone should be switching that up. And then lastly, over here, you see Teeth of the Watcher versus the Punishment of the Crimson Apex, both really, really powerful, both much better than what's existing right now. So definitely do the swap and kind of test out to see which one works better for you. Sorry, I showed you guys the heroic one. The actual legendary one is 12%. So I think this is actually a much better option than the other one was. That was showing at 9%. So definitely, I think the Teeth of the Watcher might be a better option overall than the Punishment of the Crimson Apex. But again, for Guild Boss, this one might be a no-brainer, especially if you are suffering with MP loss, especially for units like Cha and stuff who can just recover a massive amount quickly and just keep going back at damaging without losing too much DPS. All right, guys, let me know if you've been testing these out. I'm actually very excited to try a few of these on my units. Just got to work on getting them leveled up and ready to rock. All right, folks, thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.